Welcome back, everyone. This is Kevin Peridot, and this is the Raging Waters Safe Harbors podcast. So glad you're joining us. I hope you caught last week. Facebook is weird, and it's a primary way I let people know that it's out unless you're subscribed. But again, Facebook doesn't like any links because it doesn't want to. Anyway, I'm going to figure out today when I share it. I'm going to figure out another way. But welcome back. Back in the rhythm. Got some good things for you today. That's kind of setting up season 2. And season 2 is going to feel different than season 1 of the podcast. So, no real new business. Let me get right to it. Just when we thought that the world cannot get any more noisy, it's gotten a lot more noisy. And I don't think it's just me. I think I'm hearing it from people. The vibe on social media, it's there. This weekend, speaking of the world, I picked up. I want to hold it up there. There we go. A little Thomas Merton reader. I've got a bunch of Thomas Merton's books, but I was in a physical bookstore and I wanted to buy a book, and this is what I picked up. And I turned to the second chapter, and part 2 of this is the world we live in. And I read the first little section here, and I'm going to read it to you. I want to remind you that Thomas Merton died in 1968, born in 1915, spent most of his life right down the road here, real close to Bardstown, Kentucky, at a monastery there. But I want to read this and just listen to how he describes the world and its noisiness. We are living in the greatest revolution in history. Again, this was written probably late 40s, 50s, 60s, somewhere in there. We are living the greatest revolution in history, a huge spontaneous upheaval of the entire human race, not the revolution planned and carried out by any particular party, race, or nation, but a deep elemental boiling over of all the inner contradictions that have ever been in people, a revelation of the chaotic forces inside everybody. This is not something we have chosen, nor is it something we are free to avoid. This revolution is a profound spiritual crisis of the whole world, manifested largely in desperation, cynicism. Just listen to these words, he describes it. Desperation, cynicism, violence, conflict, self-contradiction, ambivalence, fear, hope, doubt, and belief, creation and destructiveness, progress and regression, obsessive attachments to images, idols, slogans, programs that only dull the general anguish for the moment until it bursts out everywhere in still a more acute and terrifying form. We do not know if we are building a fabulously wonderful world or destroying all that we have ever had, all that we have achieved. All the inner force of humanity is boiling and bursting out. The good together with evil, the good poisoned by evil, fighting it, and the evil pretending to be good and revealing itself in the most dreadful crimes, justified and rationalized by the purest and most innocent intentions. I don't call many people a prophet, but my friends, Thomas was doing some serious prophesying there. So in this world where we are now, what was his line there? I love this part. This is not something we have chosen, nor is it something we are free to avoid. We can't avoid where we are. And I've thought long and hard this past week about this podcast, where it's going to go next, and I'll get to that before we wrap up today. But I desire, my flesh wants to lash out and go after what I see are some of the main roots and causes of some of what we're experiencing now. And I realize that at the end of the day, That's not going to do a whole lot of good. But I also want to mention the symptoms or the things that are being that are causing great harm right now to the people I know, the people that live near me, the people I talk to, the people that I interact with as I travel. Like, here are kind of the symptoms. Not going to get into the why, man. But please tell me. Please hear me. I want to get on my high horse, but I'm not going to. Let me just stick with that which I know are these symptoms, the things that are showing up that somehow we need to address. And teaser, spoiler alert, I want to use this space as somewhat of a remedy, a cure, a space where we can, if you choose to participate in this life in a different way. All right, so symptom number one, things are showing up right now as the raging waters in which we are living. People are moving to extremes. All right, this is true in all areas, but I just want to speak, and I'm trying to, find my lane, right? Trying to find my lane here that I can stay in, and I don't need to be in other people's lanes. So let me just say this in relation to God. This is what I'm noticing. People are moving to one extreme and verbally naming Jesus in this almost cultural, very the best thing I can compare it to, this is horrible, but when what were those movies that came out that, oh my goodness, they were the vampire movies, the teen vampire movies from 10, 12 years ago. But anyway, people were declaring I'm on Team Edward and I'm Team Jacob. The fact that I can remember Edward and Jacob, but cannot remember Twilight. There we go. Twilight is what I was looking for. But it's almost as if people are moving to one extreme of naming Jesus. I'm on Team Jesus, guys. I'm on Team Jesus. Anyway, you've been on social media. If you haven't, bless you. You're the saint among us. But we've seen people move to this extreme of kind of verbally saying, I'm with Jesus. I'm on Team Jesus. And we've seen the other extreme of people using their words to say, I don't know where I am, but wherever I am, I'm not on that team. I'm not on that team. And I think the common denominator here is I'm not for sure if the words are truly representative of what's going on in someone. And what I mean is I think sometimes people are moving towards things and claiming teams, and they're not even for sure what they're claiming. And other people are claiming they're moving away, and they're not even sure what they're moving away from because of some of these other symptoms, okay? So just stick with me. I'll tie this all up here in a second. Second symptom. We have turned into, as it relates to God and to Jesus, into a soundbite culture. Christianity has fully embraced the sound bites. And so the sound bites that can come on 20, 30 second TikToks and reels and little video clips that are able to feed literally on our anger, the part of our brain, the amygdala. And the amygdala is where the threat response comes from. And we do the fight, flight, or freeze. And there's a fourth one, fawn. We do this thing, and we love these sound bites that stir up this anger, this frustration, this fear. And we also then on the other side like things that we teeter back and forth between these sound bites that get us all riled up and these sound bites that bring us this hit of dopamine that says, those are my people, I belong to these people, and so everything's okay. And somehow Jesus has gotten all brought all into that place and been reduced to sound bites about who he is, what he thinks, how he sees the world, how he sees people. So what's happening is we're getting sound bites when what we need most is the whole story. Okay? People verbally moving to extremes about their profession of the faith or their declaration of, I won't have anything to do with that. Coupled with sound bites is one of the primary ways in which we communicate and think that truth somehow is relayed, is in sound bites. And the third thing I see going on is I'm just going to call it the I know syndrome. The I know syndrome. So folks know all the things that they need to know, and therefore they have stopped learning. Okay? So the I know syndrome really is another way of saying people aren't learning anymore, or they are not open to learn. So again, we live in a culture where we are right and we know we're right, and everything that we take in is to prove and to prop up that which is right. And if we hear anything that challenges us, we sometimes don't look at our beliefs or our convictions. I don't even want to use the word beliefs, just convictions about things, our preferences for things, why we stand on the principles that we do. And we stop learning and growing when we go, I know. I see this clip, I know this. I hear this passage, I know this. I hear this new thing about God and this person's saying it and they're really passionate, but I'm not going to listen because I already know. You know, I run into fewer and fewer learners anymore. And it's the people that never stop learning. Those are the people you want to hang out with. But we live in a culture right now, both Christian and secular, outside of that thing, that celebrates being right, knowing you're right, and never admitting that you are wrong. Okay? So, people are moving to extremes. We're living in sound bites. The I know syndrome has set in heavily. But here's the other thing I notice. We don't like where we are. We know that something is not the way it should be. In other words, we feel like in the deepest part of who we are, something is wrong. Something is not going the way that it should. And we know there's something that's good and whole and right out there, and we long for it, and we want to fight for it, and we're trying to find congruence to it, and we're trying to figure out how to align our life and which team is, there's something in us that something doesn't set right. And you're going, why is this a good thing? Well, it's a good thing because it tells us that there's part of us that carries the seed of God. So, theologically speaking, in the story of creation, the fall of man, and the redemption of man, however you want to kind of lay that out, before humanity fell and chose to attempt to be like God and do the things that God does, we're told that we were created in his image. We were created in his image. And so there's a likeness that humanity bears. And humanity did choose to rebel. But the original move and the original part of who we are was not sin and not bad. But the original part of who we are was the very seed and likeness of God. Was that corrupted? Was that spoiled? Yes, yes. And do we need redemption in Jesus? Yes, yes, and yes. But at the start, our story, here's the way we say it. Our story does not begin with sin. Our story begins with us being, I know one Latin phrase, well, two, carpe diem, and the imago Dei, the image of God. Okay? So our story starts there. And so something in that imago Dei senses what's not right and longs for something more. And I believe if you talk to almost anyone, no matter what persuasion they are, there's something that they can't look at where we are now collectively or as a people or as the church and say, this is exactly where we're supposed to be. There's something that goes, something doesn't set right, something doesn't smell right. And that is both us longing for that which is within us, the seed of God, and that is us recognizing that what's going on around us is not the way it's intended to be, and it's not the way it will be for eternity. Okay. And now I'm, it's 17 minutes in, and now I might get a little offensive, but anybody that's listened thus far probably weren't going to be people I were going to offend anyway. All right? So, thus, we start with, again, people moving to extremes, right? Soundbite. Everything's coming in sound bites. The I know syndrome is prevalent, but yet we know something's not right and we long for something more. And I believe what we're seeing there's my thus, I think we are living in a time that I just want to call the Great Alienation. The Great Alienation. Not alien nation, but like alienation. All right? People are being alienated. And they're being alienated, I believe, from both, yes, I think it has to do with the church and somewhat has to do with being alienated from God and their perception. Because for many, the church and God are still the same thing. Where the church goes is where God goes. And that's the danger of collecting together with a group of people and calling yourselves a church, P.S., is because you represent God in the world. But the great alienation of people is happening before our eyes. This thing started during COVID. It started during COVID. And we are still kind of the fallout. The number of people I know that actively will say things like, I won't go to church. I won't have anything to do with church. That's made me question my relationship with God. And here I'm just talking about the people that were really engaged in church at one time in their life. And then you go to the other extreme of people that were not connected, that barely had any relationship with the church, or even anybody that went to church that had a relationship with God. And they've been alienated. They have been alienated. And why? Well, some of the churches have added to the noise. Many churches have added to the noise. And they've added to the noise with pushing extremes and and pushing it in a way, P.S., that I don't think is biblical. In the days ahead, I'll unpack some of this stuff, my friends. But the church have added to the noise by pushing the extremes, delivering soundbite upon soundbite upon soundbite, sound bites that without their full context sometimes can be harmful and are meant to stir people up, not in the positive way, but just to be that thing. And there's a lot of I know syndrome going around. Like I listened to at least 2 sermons from this past Sunday of local churches, and one, man, spot on, well done. I'm sending that pastor a text because I know him personally. And the other went full head over heels into adding to the noise. Extremism, sound bites. We know this. We've got this figured out. And so much of this great alienation, which the church, many churches are actively participating in, and many Christians across the perspective and the spectrum are participating in. Man, it's being fed by fear. End of the day, fear. This came up during COVID. People were scared, and it's out of this fear. And fear is such a powerful motivator. And when the powers that be tap into that, and when churches tap into that, churches shall not and should not tap into fear. There is no fear in love, but perfect love cast out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. Those who fear are not made perfect in love. 1 John 4:18. The church doesn't do our business in the currency of fear. But you see, the reason I'm even telling you this whole story is because this is what I've seen go down over the last week. I've seen these symptoms, just they're full blown. And the main concern is that if many churches have fallen in and become active participants unknowingly with all good intention, nobody that wakes up and says, I want to push people away, but they become active participants in this thing called the Great Alienation, then where will people find the living water? How will those that are in the dark see the light? Is it happening in us inviting people into the extremes of behaviors and railing against certain sins, but not knowing the essence of who Jesus is? No. Is it in kind of the sound bites and the I know syndrome? No, and no. Where people can get the living water is from the one whom called himself the living water. That would be Jesus. Like, people need to get in contact with Jesus. Leonard Sweet said many years ago, one of my favorite illustrations ever, he said that Jesus is the living water, and all the church is supposed to do is to kind of metaphorically put a bowl in front of the church with the living water and say to people, come and drink. But many churches, in their need to filter, to create elaborate plumbing systems, to filter out certain things and put other additives in, has so distorted the living water that it's no longer living water. Sweet was saying that 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when I first got into ministry within the church. So, man, I wanted to sit on the sideline. Can I just say that out loud? Some of my last years working in the church, COVID on, I experienced craziness, stuff that I never wanted to experience. I saw people because of these very same symptoms. Extremism that was more verbal than it was that they've went all in for Jesus, but verbally they had went all in for Jesus. Sound bites. I know you can't tell me I'm not here to learn. And I was glad to be out of this because I didn't know what to do with it anymore, to be honest with you. I just didn't know what to do. I wanted to help people. I wanted to be light in a dark place, but I no longer knew how to do it. And I was released, and I was glad. Last week and over this weekend, I have felt the compelling to find a way to get back in the game. And I am doing it both because I feel compelled, out of faithfulness, out of an awareness that this is where I need to be and what I need to be saying. And yeah. So I'm here. And if there's something I can do in this space to maybe help, this is what I want to do. Heard this quote the other day. A dear friend of mine really said I need to finish Deadwood, the HBO miniseries. I had started it, not finished. And I'm about 3 or 4 episodes in. When there's a funeral, there's a bunch of funerals at the beginning of the thing. No, not a spoiler alert. But Seth Bullock's character says the preacher, there's a preacher that does these funerals at the beginning, and he's talking to Bullock as they're walking away from the graveside. And Bullock looks at him and he says these words: "If you're preaching at me, Reverend, you need to put some more light on the text. If you're preaching at me, Reverend, you need to put some more light on the text." And I'm like, that is gold. Whoever wrote that line, that's gold. We need to put a little bit more light on the text. Listen, the solution for I knowism, for sound bites, to false extremism, going all in with Jesus or all out with Jesus in your words and really loud and boisterous, and these things contribute to the Great Alienation, the solution, the remedy, is putting a little bit more light on the text. I deeply believe if we could just get back to the text, to the story, to the words, the voice, and the stories of faith that we have left and recorded, that we will see who Jesus is, how God is positioned in the world, and how he cares and how he wants us to interact. And I think it's pretty straightforward. And once we see it, you can't unsee it. But I'm afraid that in the I knowism, the sound bites, the extremism, the fear, that these messages are not getting shared or taught in the way that they should anymore. All right? The African proverb, as I've heard it said, I'm going to misquote it just a little bit here, but you don't fight the darkness by screaming at it or screaming into it, but you fight the darkness by lighting a candle. I think there's something right now about fighting against this alienation that's happening, that I'm telling you that's happening, and I see it and it grieves my heart. And we're not going to win by screaming at it. we're going to win and make forward movement by shining light. And I think that light goes on the text. Thus, podcast and what it's going to look like in the days ahead. This podcast, as I said last year, I got 4 or 5 episodes in. I'm like, what the heck am I even doing this for? Like, do I just need to hear myself talk because I talk for 25 years every week, 2 or 3 times. So I just need to hear myself talk about the scripture to make myself feel better. And then 3 or 4 in, I decided and was able to articulate this. This is really for my sons, my 4 sons, Lucas, Liam, Landon, and Larkin, and for my family. And it's the best I can do is to share a little bit of that which is most near and dear to my heart and have it recorded, like kind of like writing a long letter or book. And instead of it being written, I'm just speaking it. So hopefully they can hear my tone, the way I'm saying things. They can experience it all. And we've got the technology now that stuff can, man, it can outlive me. It can outlive them. You know what I'm saying? So it's for them. And I wonder sometimes how they're going to navigate a world that feels so complicated compared to the world I grew up in. So primarily, it's for them, for my family. But friends, please listen in. And friends of my children, listen in. Like if this is happening, which it is, these are stories I hear my sons telling also about their friends and about where are they connecting and where are they getting Jesus from. And I just want to create some space for people to connect with the word. Listen, so family, my sons, their friends, my friends, anyone else that feels alone, broken, tired, burned out, don't know where to turn, this space is for you. These are literally safe harbors in the midst of raging waters that we're experiencing. So what will we do? How will this work? Well, each week I'm going to start just clicking through the New Testament. 1 chapter a week. And I'm planning on starting with the book of Mark. So that's about 16 weeks starting next week. And so I invite you, jump in, read the first chapter of Mark as many times as you can. And next week when we get together, I'm just going to walk through it. And I'm going to tell you some things I was reading this morning, some little things about the background, the history, different customs. Like at the end of the first chapter, it talks about a leper and knowing how a leper is perceived makes the story 10 times like deeper and more rich in meaning. But the goal here is to expose us all to Jesus' words, to who he is, to how he calls us to live. And furthermore, how Jesus represented God's plan, his purpose, his will and way in this world. And we just want to look at it. I want to create space and hold space for you so you can hear what God is voicing to you from Scripture, from the Bible, from his word. Listen, you can tell I'm not going to give you sound bites. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not even going to tell you I know all the answers, my friends. I am still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still being convicted by things that I read. Man, so I there's things I don't know, but I do know that if we are going to slow down, stop, turn the tide on the Great Alienation, there's got to be people that will start seeking God and his word. Because here's what I know. If we seek God, then God is going to be found. Like God doesn't play hide and seek with people. He doesn't torment them by hiding in the shadows and darting from one shadow to the next, just out of people's reach. Like when we turn our hearts to God and say, we want to find you, we want to know you, we want to be aligned with you, God answers those prayers. And I just want this to be a safe place where you can seek God and we can seek God together. Plain and simple. I hope this makes sense. I hope this resonates. And if it does, man, I would love to hear from you. Sitting here on Thursday afternoon, talking into a mic, I'm pretty pumped up. I'm excited because this stuff's near and dear to me. Yet there's moments, again, just like you, that, right? I'm alone in this. That's always like that little lie that sneaks up on all of us. So again, if it resonates with you, holler at me. If there's something more you want to see or hear about or ideas you have, man, just reach out to me. All right. Well, my friends, thank you for joining in. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll either be back next Wednesday, Thursday. It'll probably move up in the week, to be honest with you. I've got a bunch of knife shows coming up that fall on Thursdays, and I'll be out of town. So it'll probably be earlier in the week very soon. I might even make that transition next week. So until next week, strength, courage, keep forging forward, my friends, and I will see you all next week.